Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Nusrat Noshin, and I'm currently coordinating the loss and damage program at the International Center for Climate Change and Development. And I really heartily welcome all of you to join us today at the last day of the Gobeshona Global Conference, GGC4. And it's been a tremendous amount of pleasure that we got so many sessions this time around clocked in, and we got to hear from so many people, experts and local communities and vulnerable people alike. And it's great to have all of you in this today's wonderful panel, and we'll hear lots of stories. So basically, this session is mainly focused towards hearing stories and then connecting it to the level of climate action and climate justice. So as we know that grassroots narratives have emerged as a potent tool in advocating for climate justice and galvanizing legal action. And this session will particularly explore this convergence of grassroots storytelling and legal advocacy, focusing on initiatives such as something that we have done previously the past few years, called Voices from the Frontline series, which basically works towards providing pivotal evidence for climate action and litigation efforts. And by highlighting these experiences from the communities in Bangladesh and in South Asia, in small islands and different parts of the world where climate-induced losses and damages are starkly visible, this session aims to underscore the pressing need for action by exploring into the legal dimensions of climate justice and examining the landmark cases of climate lawsuit, which our partner here in HEX will be talking about how they have used this kind of on-the-ground evidence towards, posing litigation and climate justice actions. So through this interactive dialogue and case stories, this session seeks to empower participants to leverage storytelling for transformative change, fostering cross-cultural collaboration and advancing climate justice for a more resilient and equitable future. So I really welcome all of our experts and panelists here. We would love to hear from the stories from the authors who have gone into the grassroots communities to talk to the people and hear from them firsthand on the experiences that they have shared with us. And then finally, make that connection between from stories towards climate justice. So thank you all for being here. So we'll start off with a very quick short video. So in the Voices from the Frontline series, we have a series of case stories from different parts of the world, but also we have a few video documentaries. And as we move along, we would love to showcase those so that you can, because I think video and storytelling are very important and influencing tool towards understanding what the realities on the ground is. So I'll start off with a scene setting. So we have this particular video documentary from Uganda that one of our Voice from the Frontline authors and videographer has posted. So we'll start off with that. So I'll quickly share my screen so that you can take a look.
In 2018, I decided to start this project, expecting that my retirement was about to come. So I retired as an inspector of schools from Soronko district, and I started this project in Kadimukoli, in Budaka district, Kamonkoli sub-county. When I planted this matoke, it started very well, but later on, it started going down, especially during the sunshine. Sunshine affected the production, where we would come here and pick like 20, 30 bunches, they all dwindled. So when the sunshine was too much, it lost the productivity. Also, people of this area were stricken by hunger. They cut the matoke, they ate. When I complained to the chairman told me that's not that they are thieves, but they lack what to eat. That this was the only project in this place. So all these homes were coming to get matoke here.
Mu siku omwo twakolangamu okusooka yatutwala bulungi, okuddako omusana ne gutubisa bubi, naye ng'omukaade atuwaako akasente ne katuyamba mu nsiko omwo, naye oluvannyuma lw'emisana omusana ne gugirawo ebitooke ne bikola ki? Ne bifa. Omusana gwali mungi ne guleeta enjala, abantu ne bajja ne babba ebitooke. Kinkosizza kubanga sifuna. Esente ezo nga zinyamba nnyo n'aludda lw'abaana bange neze mwenyini.
So one time we just gave up and said, let the wananchi eat the matoke. When we went to the chairman, he told us frankly that you forgive us, we are not thieves, but this whole area has been affected by the sunshine, and the only refugees in this Rusuku here. So they would all come, cut from the other side. Even these women can give witness, the ones who are working here.
Mukiseera isana lizere lyakire matoke tutufuna lute dasookere tafunire nga aize batema nafuna asala tatu wake sente sala tuyamba maka gaisu esa wenu isana lyakire pano gifiro tuula kitufuna gibege tuyamba omukaya batu wako tufuna mugitu yamba ne family yaiswe.
Now for me, I have no capacity to solve this problem. When the matoke was scorched, it died the way it has died. Now the rain has come back, it is sprouting up again. So I hope that I will dig again and have new matoke here when there is rain. Otherwise, in this place, we have no irrigation. There are no rivers near around. So for me, I had no solution as a person, but I just looked at the matoke, it died, and I'm waiting for the next rainy season.
Ndimireyo mukazi wange yagikolangamu ngefa manager nga wakolamo akasente kanyamba ki kati maaso gano gankwatire okukola ki kufamu amaaso nenga nalikola era saa zino siraba kati maaso gamazeko emyaka nga 3 yakati wintula wano mukayembe wano nkaaba nnyo amaziga lwaki sirina obuyambi bwonna kati omukazi yajjangawo n'agirako omu yatulamu obuyambi busobola okukola ki kunyamba nakati tubuliibwo lwakuba bitooka byakola ki byafa kati nobimalamu n'ogundi n'omugaga amaanyi gatola ssente okukola ki kuwa bantu.
Because when we started this project, we even went with my husband to the sub-county to look for the agriculture extension person. He never even came here. He would tell us he would come and advise us, they never came. So even the district authorities never helped us. Because when we started the project, we went to them and talked to them that we have started a project for Bogoya. We need your support as agriculture extension worker to come and guide us. They never came. So we have received no support, but we were doing it individually as a family. Because the land is mine, I'm going to look for money, dig it up again, plant maize, plant some cassava, hoping that with the continual rains, the matoke will come up again, and we see where we are going.
Great. So that was one of the voice from the frontline video documentaries that we had received from a videographer in Uganda. So since we now had a scene setting of the African subcontinent, I would like to invite our first VFL author, from the Green Girls Foundation. Her name is Jane. So Jane, would you like to take the floor? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all fine. I am Jane Zumwale from Green Girls Platform. It's a female-led organization here in Malawi. And I've been working with Green Girls for 2 years now, from the day I graduated, and I've been working as a community engagement officer, going to different places, different districts here in Malawi. So as Green Girls, we actually work with girls and young women, more especially who are vulnerable, more especially who are affected by climate change. So as Green Girls, we actually go into different places. As I've said, we work in different districts here in Malawi, which are Mulanje, Milongwe, Blantyre, and more than 5 districts. So the girls and young women who are mostly affected by the disasters are the ones which we actually work with most of the times. And going into district, listening to their stories, actually, because they are the ones who are mostly affected, So we usually go to the district, in communities, small groups, and hear from their stories, what actually they have been affected and how they have been affected. That's actually what we do. So here in Malawi, girls and young women usually face a lot of problems when it comes to the effects of climate change. Recently, actually this last month, Nkhotakota district was also affected by floods. So despite this year's floods, we actually had past floods. We had Cyclone Freddy in Mulanje, and we had floods in Salima in Nkhotakota, and also we had drought in Kalunga as well. So as Green Girls, we usually go to those places to listen to their stories and how to see how best we can do as a female-led organization, a young female-led organization. So upon going to these different places, we actually realized that girls are really facing problems when it comes to hygiene. Actually, what happens is when they are affected by floods, they are taken into places where they are supposed to survive because their houses are destroyed. So these are the girls and the young women who are mostly typically from maybe the villages, and they actually don't have those well-to-do relatives, and their lives are actually usually based in their home villages. And then the floods comes in, wipes off their villages, and they have nowhere to go. They can't actually go to town. They can't come to the capital city of Malawi, which is Lilongwe, to ask for someone's help. So they're actually taken into places where the government maybe interferes how best they can be helped. But being on those places, they usually suffer. As you know, we all know girls, we really have some things that we need to go through as girls. I'm sorry to say this, for example, with periods, as girls, you can't just do as it was done when you were at your own place. It's different when you are at this place where there are a lot of people. In those places where in the camp where it's the combination of different genders, there are males there, and then there are girls there, and then there are young women there, and then there are women there, and then there are older women there. So it's a combination of different people. So their hygiene becomes very difficult because everything has been wiped off. They actually don't have clothes. They have nothing unless if some other people comes in first, and then they help them with the second-hand things, especially clothes. And then to come up to be as they were at home, it really becomes difficult. So on the hygiene, they are actually affected. And when they're in the camps, they are usually affected in sexual exploitation. They are out of their houses are destroyed, and then they are in the camp. They just have to abide by those who are in charge of them. In the camp, there are some maybe volunteers there. There are some people assigned by the government to look after those people, to be in charge of those people. And then these girls, these women, these young women, they actually face sexual exploitation. They really have for them to find what they need, for them to find soap, for them to find sugar, for them to find anything that is a basic need to them. They need to have sexual intercourse or any other bad thing that can happen sexually, so that they should fulfill what they need. The same thing happens in different districts. As I've said, we work in different areas, and these floods, these climate change activities, they happen in different districts, Mulanje, Salima, Kota. So these, like all these districts, we are having girls and young women who are actually there, and they have no any other choice but to stay there and remain there with others. And then they are facing this hygiene problem. They are facing this exploitation problem. This can actually happen during the disaster or post-disaster. But what can they do? They just have to face it. Being girls, as girls, some girls, they are in their villages, but they are girls who usually go to school. They are in the community, yes, but they usually go to school. So the coming in of these floods, the coming in of these climate change effects, they actually affect them in their education places, which means they have to relocate, they have to stop school. Dropping out of school actually put them into early marriages, early pregnancies. So all these, they have reallocated into camps. They have stopped school. They have gotten into marriages. Some are pregnant because of sexual exploitation. All this is like an increase of early marriages here in Malawi, increase of sexual exploitation, increase of school drop out of a girl child, young women. Actually, there are some girls who, when they give birth, they are given that advantage to go back to school. But with coming in of these floods, they are to drop again out of school and go back into marriages. So those are actually the things that girls and young women here in Malawi, they face. They may sometimes try to speak out. You know, there are some people who actually come there, talk to them, but with bad intentions. They'll actually speak out, but how far does their message reach? How far do they trust those people who they are speaking out? And how best can they be assured that their message which they have spoken out is going to be reached to the right place, and then they will receive good feedback, and then they'll see a change. So they really try to speak out, but the help isn't there, as they do expect. For example, in Mulanje, we also have a group of women, but there are a lot of women who are affected by Cyclone Freddy in Mulanje. And we went to Mulanje, where we just met a small group of women and girls. These girls were just small groups. We didn't meet a lot of people who were exposed to this Cyclone Freddy. They actually spoke out. We went there because we didn't actually go at the time of cyclone as it happened. It took us some time to raise some funds so that at least we could go and reach out to them, since we work with them. So we went there. It was a little bit late, but we managed to go there. And then speaking to these few women we met, they would actually explain that, yes, we were affected by Cyclone Freddy. We tried to speak out. It has been some months now. There's no any response. You would actually feel the pain of a woman actually telling you the story that this is what we experienced, and this is what we told the government, and this is what we told the people who came to our places, but until today, there is no feedback. So I understand that when it comes to disaster caused by climate change, we usually, most of the countries, most of the government looks at it in an economic manner. The house which they have lost, the clothes they have lost, anything that they have lost. But what about the non-economic thing? Are they really being helped? They are in the camps, they have mental issues, but they are being added on with some other issues. They are being sexually exploited. The hygiene is really bad. What on that issue? So as green girls, we actually look at that at that moment, at that thing that, yes, we can't manage to put them in a house. We can't manage to give them clothes that they had, but what can we do? They are girls, they are young women as we are. So we usually reach out to them to help them mentally. We can't actually measure the stress which they have been affected with. We can't measure their depression. We can't actually tell them that how much is the amount of your mom which you have lost, how much is it? We are going to pay you that amount. Tell us, it's someone they have lost. It's a beloved one. It's the mother, it's the child, it's the uncle, it's the auntie, but we can't do. But the government side usually looks at the physical things which they see, but what about those things that they can't see? So as green girls, we usually come in, we talk about that. We sit down by creating safe space for girls where they can talk about issues that is actually affecting them. And then after talking to them, and then we'll come up as Green Girls Female Organization, we speak out for them. This is what young women, this is what girls are facing, and how best can we go about it. And then you actually help them, that we can't always be there for them, but we will help them to be in small groups. That's why we have working places in different districts. In those districts, there are communities, and then they speak about it themselves, helping each other. But we understand that physical attendance of someone, or maybe it differs from visual attendance. You can't just be there. You call today, but when you are present at that place, it's actually different. But for Green Girls, we usually go there maybe once, because no resources, we can't manage to go there as always. We are not, that capacity we do not have. So, and we usually speak out, we advocate for them, their issues, but those people are in different communities, local villages actually. They don't have smartphones, they don't have a laptop. So our message, even if we spread the messages, we do this, we do that, it doesn't reach them. For example, today it's International Women's Day. Yes, it's International Women's Day. Do the women at the villages know that today is International Women's Day? And the inclusivity which is there, do they know about it? So as girls, Green Girls Platform, we are all trying to do that, to reach out to these women, to reach out to these girls. The inclusivity has to be there. We know there's loss and damage which has happened, which is happening, which is taking place to different communities, and how best can we do as Green Girls? So that's much what I can say. So, yeah, anything, problem, any question? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jane. That was very insightful, and thank you for putting a context to the video that we have shared before. So with that, we would now move on to some of our other panelists from particularly from Southeast Asia. So before that, we would like to again show you a very short clip. So Abrar, could you play the Bangladesh video, please? Thank you. Not this, the Bangladesh
Fiji,
video.
like every other country in the world,
Charipara, a remote coastal village in southern Bangladesh. Here the scars of violent destruction are tragically clear, and climate change adaptation is no longer a viable option for the population. For the 25 families living on this broken embankment, the nearest source of drinking water is 1.5 kilometres away. A 6 feet by 8 feet makeshift accommodation is now the home of Yasin Hawlada and his 4 family members. There are no sanitation facilities and the nearest healthcare centre is 5 kilometres away. He once owned 1.2 acres of fertile land and a home for his family. But everything changed. A devastating erosion in 2013 took away everything.
বাজার আসলাম বাজার কাম করছি দোকানে যাইয়া হেল এই অবস্থা করে বাড়ি গাড়ি সব লই গেছে গাছ গোড়া সব ভেঙে চুরে লই গেছে ওই মালামাল কিছু কিছু পাইছে কিছু কিছু পাই নাই খুঁড়ি মুড়ি রইছে খুঁড়িয়ে থুয়ে দিয়েছে আমার খুব কষ্ট লাগতেছে আবার আমার হ্যাঁ কমুখী করতে পারি না কমে যাবো জায়গা নাই জমি নেই কিছু নেই তো মেয়েটি সম্পদ যাওয়ার কোনো পথও নাই
Since 2007, the embankment has been damaged 6 times. After nearly 3 years, a temporary polder was built. Cultivation was possible once again, but no one can guarantee that this will withstand the next monsoon. Once a solvent farmer, Yasin now works as a day labourer. Those who could afford it left the village.
অন্তবাকে 2-3 জন লোক আছে কত ঢাকা গেছে ঢাকা যাইয়া ওই ফতুল্লা কাজকর্ম করে এই কামরাঙ্গা স্বর্গে আছে আরও বিভিন্ন জায়গা যে যেজন পারে এরকম যে কাজকর্ম করছে
Yasin Hawlada points to the place in the vast water body, which used to be a village called Noya Kata. In less than 2 decades, the whole village went underwater. The impacts of climate change are already too severe for people to cope with and adapt to, and is leading to loss and damage.
Thank you so much. So, in order to shed some light into these adverse impacts that are happening in South Asia, I would like to call upon a set of speakers from Southeast Asia. So, to begin with, we'll invite Mr. Shamsud Doha. Shamsud Doha has been working at the Center for Participatory Research and Development, CPRD, in Bangladesh as its chief executive. With the capacity of delegation of members of the government of Bangladesh to climate change negotiation at the UNFCCC, he has been consistent in following negotiations, especially on the topics of loss and damage, climate finance, adaptation, and technology transfer. So, Doha bhai, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I am audible to you. Hello.
Yeah. Yes, it's okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
It's okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to share some experiences in relation to loss and damage. In fact, I was listening to the previous speakers and also have seen the videos. If I consider loss and damage scenario in Bangladesh, I would like to, narrate 3 different pictures from Bangladesh. One is loss and damage, which is related to sudden onset event, for instance, flood, for instance, cyclone. The other scenario, which is translated when a sudden onset event is translated to residual impact of climate change, for instance, waterlogging, for instance, other environmental hazard caused by the sudden onset event. This is also contributing to or resulting to loss and damage. The other concern is loss and damage in the context of slow onset event, for instance, salinity intrusion in the coastal areas of Bangladesh. For the first picture, there are several examples from Bangladesh. One is Cyclone Sidor that hit Bangladesh in 2007. Then another is Cyclone Ayla in 2009. That 2 cyclone, consecutive cyclone, had a huge impact on people's livelihood. They destroyed many economic activities, and they also caused inundation of many freshwater areas. While they caused some economic loss and damages by inundation of freshwater areas, crop loss, then they forced people to dislocate or displace to nearby areas, meaning that they might come back or they might come back to their homes of origin if everything turned to a normal situation. But in case of Cyclone Sidor and Cyclone Ayla, we have seen that the residual impact of sudden onset event was long, and that was irrecoverable. For instance, due to Cyclone Sidor and Cyclone Ayla, huge saline water introduced to the freshwater areas that caused permanent inundation of agricultural land. They also destroyed some ecosystem. You know that ecosystem also provides livelihood support. They also polluted the freshwater reservoirs, pond and other lakes, canals. So in the context of the residual impact, people are forced to migrate. There are many incidences of migration from the Cyclone Ayla communities to urban slums. Still, there are many people live on the embankment and they don't have, the meaningful livelihood activities. And there is a slow migration. Sometimes called it economic migration or circular migration or periodic migration from the Cyclone Ayla affected areas. And this is due to collapse of agricultural activities. And when a person migrates from the cyclone affected areas to the urban slum, very often they engage to the undignified activities. And there are some evidences. We know some people who migrated, who once was a rich farmer, we can say landlord in terms of agricultural activities. They lost everything, and they're forced to migrate to the urban slum, and they're just doing some undignified job like rickshaw pulling, like working in other household, and they don't want to disclose their identity that once they were a rich farmer. So the loss of identity, loss of dignity is also is a non-economic loss, and this is not recognized by the traditional loss and damage assessment. When we talk about loss and damage assessment, traditionally this is assessment of some economic loss and damages aftermath of disaster. So many of the loss and damages, when we talk about non-economic loss and damages, this is related to human dimension of climate change impact. They are also linked to human rights dimension of climate change impact. But unfortunately, in the global negotiation, both the dimension, human dimension of climate change impact and the rights-based dimension of climate change impacts are ignored in global negotiation process, also in national plan. The other concern I would like to narrate in terms of river basin areas, flood-prone areas, there was a huge riverbank erosion in 2018. In that period, many households were eroded by river, mighty river Padma. This is a district, located in the Ganges and Brahmaputra river basin area. This is very active delta. So people really move with the flow of water, because when water erodes one side of river, they move to the other side of river. When a landmass, arise from water, we call it sandbar or shore, then people take shelter in those shores. Again, those shores are, or the landmass are also highly exposed to disaster, for instance, flooding. And that shores, that island are frequently flooded, annually flooded during the monsoon season. So riverbank erosion causes displacement primarily, and when it's a mass displacement, in 2008 around 4,000 people were displaced because they lost everything to the neighboring communities. And when they displaced to new location, the neighborhood, the new community is not welcoming to them. Sometimes they suffer from teasing. Sometimes they're struggling to earn their livelihood because there is competition in labor market. Sometimes they also faces teasing, harassment when they want to collect potable water, maybe from others' households. So that kind of social discrimination is very common when people migrate, when people displaced from their homes of origin and take shelters to other areas. There are many evidences of, school drop out from school, because when a community displaced from one place to another place, uh, they really want to save money for food and other essentials, and they employ their small children and kids for livelihood earning, and drop out from school is a very common incident in those areas. But a boy, a male, an adolescent boy can get a job to the, maybe in industry, maybe in a bricklayer, maybe in other household, maybe in a small factory. But a teenager girl or adolescent girl cannot take job like a boy, because there is a concern of insecurity when adolescent girls uh, wants to take a job in a small industry or in informal sectors. There is a fear of being teased. There is a fear of being harassed sexually and other means. So that adolescent girls are considered as a risk to that family. Very often, we have seen many cases that the parents of that adolescent girl prefer to marry off their adolescent girl, because they consider marrying off an adolescent girl is a kind of risk transferring. So it's a risk transferring for a parents, maybe, but putting a adolescent girl, under risk for her lifetime. We have seen there are many stories of early marriage in the riverbank erosion areas, and the rate of early marriage is more in the climate change affected areas compared to the other areas of Bangladesh, which is less exposed to the impacts of climate change. So the incidences of more child marriage is also causing social problem, family crisis, and also health crisis of the adolescent girls. It's entire loss of life. No, in that sense, but also there is no to dream for that adolescent girls in the entire life. So there are many stories like that. On the other hand, there is another incidences of flash flood areas. This is northeastern part of the country, and that area receives huge precipitation during monsoon season. There is a huge upstream water, sudden upstream water in that area, and there is a close connection of huge rainfall to rise of temperature, because rise of temperature often causes, flow of water and rainfall, and that flash flood is causing loss of agricultural land, standing crops, and loss of agricultural land, standing crops is also forcing people to displace and migrate to the urban areas for jobs and livelihood. So there are also evidences of many evidences that many oil of household, many oil of agricultural farmers lost their everything overnight, and they forced to migrate to the neighboring cities for rickshaw pulling, for getting job in informal sectors. So there is lots of stories like this in the coastal areas, and also from the other climate change affected areas in relation to loss and damages. But when we try to make that loss and damages to the impacts of climate change, sometimes this is not that easy. For instance, if I consider salinity intrusion in the coastal areas of Bangladesh, particularly in the southwest, this is not only due to sea level rise, but also due to stream farming, but also due to not having water from the upstream during winter. Because if we receive less water from the upstream, then easily the downward water, the seawater would go up. So there is no counterbalancing by the upstream water flow and the upward flow of saline water due to sea level rise. So these are happening, and this is another concern which is related to development. So when I talk about loss and damage in relation to economic loss and non-economic losses, Certainly, there is a link of climate change, but we also should not forget the development challenges because there are many development challenges. If we fail to build, construct our embankment, and also risk prevention infrastructure in proper way, then it will increase or instigate the impacts of climate change. And if the impacts of climate change increases, then it will cause both economic and non-economic loss and damages. So this is not only connecting to climate change, but also looking into our other development challenges, also the governance challenges, so that we can understand the total scenario of economic and non-economic loss and damages and their connection to human rights-based violation, and can take proper measures to address those. I have to stop here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paisa, for these wonderful insights that we needed to hear. But it's not just people, but how marginalized population are being disproportionately affected by climate change impacts. So thank you so much for that. So let me move on to our next speaker from South India. His name is Kapoor. He's currently a faculty at the University of University in Chicago. And he's one of our authors from the West Frontline series, who has researched the pandemic is happening in the future. So Amelia, over to you. I don't think Amelia is currently in the chat box. He was there a bit of never mind. So we move on to our next speaker. So his name is Mohammed Shamais. He's also a lecturer at the University in Maldives. So he's also one of our was from the frontline authors who has been stored from some of the marginalized people living in the front lines in Maldives, and talk about their experiences on the ground. So, Shamais, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Nusrat. Just give me about 30 seconds. I will start.
Sure, sure.
Is my presentation visible at the moment?
It's coming.
Sorry, how long is the presentation for? How many minutes do I have?
The speaker has about 5 to 6 minutes.
Sorry?
5 to 6 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Can you reshare your screen, because I think it got stuck.
It's not coming, right? Let me. Um, Is it coming now?
It's just actually. You can start the presentation and you can start talking and then we can just some more green or
So I'll just speak, right?
yeah, you can just speak and so that maybe we can try to share it.
All right, so okay, I'll start. So all right, so loss and damage is something that's is recently been discussed. It's related in climate change. This discussion has been there for a long time, and I think addressing loss and damage is something that's recent, and it's Professor um, Salim Al Haq. He was very important in this discussion around, and I think it has benefited even the Maldives because my colleagues in the Maldives, they did mention cooperating with him and talking about this in international forums. So in this one I'll talk a little bit about the Maldives. So in this back in 2022 there was a UN resolution about the right to environment, and so and this is very much relevant for the when we talk about the loss and damage. And then one of the issues we have is that when we have show our situation to the uh, international community or other countries, we also don't have our good baseline data, and especially on the slow onset disasters and about the non-economic losses. And we have had and there have been issues of like climate change, where rainfall patterns is not have is changed actually. So recently back in January there we had a very strong rainfall which flooded the capital Male Island, as it is very unusual to have rain in January, and it lasted for many days. Um, and well, for this, well, in some other islands where rural communities, sometimes we don't even know what's happening there. So it's important there's a mechanisms for data collection, and also it's important for communities to have access to technologies where this information on data can be collected, so that we can show, okay, this is happening. And now the technologies like drones can be used, and people actually can be empowered for these things. And when I say about these resources, it's actually also involve money. So which means that yes, for loss and damage, different strategies can be made for empowering people, communities, and but then their finance is needed as well. And so understanding the community resilience is also important through monitoring evaluation. So back in 2004, we had Maldives as one of the countries that was impacted by the tsunami, and along with India and Sri Lanka. And and our casualty, the number of people who passed away at that time was less compared to these countries. But what mostly not known to the outside world is that every single island in the Maldives were impacted, and even when where islands where there were no human casualties, people died, lot of crops died. And so one of the most impacted crop was breadfruit, which was one of the most important crop for the Maldivians for centuries. So Maldivians basically relied on breadfruit even when they didn't have rice. Why rice? It's difficult to grow rice, so rice is imported, but people used to rely on breadfruit trees. So I was working in one of the islands, it is the seventh largest in the Maldives, and except for one breadfruit tree, all the trees died. It died that time. So it's important to have monitoring evaluation mechanisms to understand how things are improving. And then also ecological assessment can be done, for example, using participatory rural assessment methods as well. So participation is important. And we also need to understand that these ecological systems are interconnected. So what's happened on the land might impact on the sea, and what's impact on the sea can also impact the land as well. So there are also short-term and long-term impacts. So for example, just take one example about the hazards like sea swells, tidal waves and sea swells. And so it can also have cascading impacts like rapid coastal flooding, increased coastal erosion, removal of topsoils, and it can increase the salinity of groundwater as well. And also secondary impact can be the danger to life, damage to coastal protection, like even when there are infrastructure built, and it can also contaminate water supply. And tertiary hazards can also be like displacement of people, loss of services, power, water, communication, healthcare. So after tsunami, there were like some communities completely displaced. So there were a few islands that completely abandoned, and these islands are not inhabited anymore. And then when they were moved to other places, like its internally displaced people, they also had challenges when they were trying to reintegrate as well. And so we did one case study about one island called Kumburudu, where so there were issues of beach erosion. Sometimes it's also exacerbated by not only with the climate change, but also when human made in structures when it was done without proper EIS. And later an EIS was done back in 2009, which indicated that if immediate measures were not taken, the eastern houses will lost due to beach erosion. And it was really severe. That beach erosion had caused like almost reached the island community office as well. And there in another island, I've seen that it like impacted up to the school as well. So and to mitigate this, the government actually spent a lot of money sometimes to reclaim the reclamation or like this. And so many of the islands are vulnerable to beach erosion, and it also has resulted in impact of the salinity groundwater, because Maldivians used to rely on the groundwater and the rainwater, and groundwater was completely safe to drink, but now it's become very salty. And then in this island, Kumrudu Island, people actually have relied on this salty water for taking bath and other things for almost 20 years. And only last year, end of last year, government wanted now they have started a project for desalination of water. But again, desalination, it has a cost. And so still the islands, they continue to get sea swells, and because of this fresh water had impacted. And it also has cultural and economic impacts as well. So because of the salty water, when they were using the salt water for washing, then the washing machines break very easily. And also some of the crops, it was not easy to grow anymore. And then it means that the newer generations, they also forget some of the crops they used to rely on before, and it's like cultural impacts as well. And then but the communities, they also have tried to do their own initiations like planting trees. So I was talking to one individual who had planted 250 coconut trees along the shore. So it was helping to some extent, but it also has a limited but yes, it has a significant impact, but there's a limit communities can themselves do. And then the government also, basically this happened after the harbor was constructed. But back in early 1990s, there was a corals bleaching incident which occurred in the Maldives. But this is also a result of the global warming globally. So things that happen globally impacts our small islands as well. And government built some structures, to hard engineering structures, but when these were built to protect shoreline. But when these were built, it kind of there was a sacrifice the community had to make, because they lost the nice beach that they had before. So these are kind of costs for the communities and challenges. But now there are also other initiations by the government, for example, to introduce an impact-based forecasting system. So it is a structured approach for combining hazard exposure and vulnerability data to identify risk and support decision-making, with the ultimate objective of encouraging early actions that can reduce damages and loss of life from natural hazards and climate risks. So what happens is that before the weather forecasting is only to see what might occur, but now with the impact-based forecasting, they can also estimate the impact, and they can also go into the extent where certain locations can be impacted, how they can impact. So with this, it can the government or the policymakers will be more able to give notifications to the people to become more prepared. And the long-term data can also help for climate adaptations as well, and also for loss and damage. Yes, but however, small islands communities, they can do things, but anyways, there's a limit they can do. So technical cooperation finance is needed. And with this loss and damage, so back in 2023, so I saw this comment statement by the government Maldives. It says that so because of this new development, it says it's important for cohesion to ensure that the needs of the most vulnerable are met. It takes a mosaic of solutions to address the multiple effects of losses and damages. Yeah, this is the statement by the Minister of Environment. And so, so that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Romanis, for on how the processes and cancer affecting the So now move on to the speakers who are focusing mainly on vulnerable states. So so if you could show the quiz. It's just basically a campaign for the it's not Vanuatu, but so it's a beautiful video, so we love to show it to you. Okay.
What is happening to our world? Have you ever stopped to notice? What does it take for you to see? Lives are being lost. With all the storms raging, corals dying, ocean levels rising, it's a threat to our human rights. Fossil fuels burning us past 1.5 degrees. What are we gaining from this madness? Some people are in danger. We're calling out to you, International Court of Justice, an advisory opinion on human rights and climate change. We're calling out to you, United Nations, leaders of today, protect the rights of the human race. We're calling out to you.
Yeah, we have a duty to all of mankind. Legal obligations must stand to defend our rights. This chance to get clarity from the International Court of Justice on the legal obligations in the struggle for survival with a million voices. Save the Paris Agreement, everyone must act. So better mankind, wake up now, it's not too late. Raise your voices up, speak for the children of tomorrow. With every forest burning, every person moving, every day is passing by, and time is running out. Bit by bit the world is heating over, and it seems to never end. We're calling out again.
We're calling out to you, International Court of Justice, an advisory opinion on human rights and climate change. We're calling out to you, United Nations,
Leaders of the world,
leaders of today, protect the rights of the human race. We're calling out to you, save our world,
save our world,
save our future, save our hope for our future generation.
Thank you so much, Abrar, for sharing that. So basically, the Republic of Vanuatu has previously, I think last year at Gobeshona, they launched this. So they led a global coalition to adopt this UN General Assembly resolution asking to the International Court of Justice to clarify the state obligations and the legal consequences related to climate change impacts. So with that in mind, I would like to call upon Ms. Florence Yautu. She is currently the strategic manager for the Secretariat to the National Advisory Board on the Climate Change and Disaster Risk Reduction in Vanuatu. And she's also currently there is a newly formed Department of Climate Change since 2018 in the Ministry of Climate Change in Vanuatu, and she's currently employed in that as well, and also leading a number of work and projects there. So over to you, Florence.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Nusrat, and good night from Vanuatu. It's 9 p.m. from our end. But thank you so much for giving Vanuatu this opportunity. So talking about loss and damage in Vanuatu will be similar for all the PSEEDs, the SEEDs and the Pacific SEEDs. And I also want to relate to what was also shared by from Bangladesh. Was a very good information sharing from him as well. So I will briefly just talk about what the national government has been doing, especially to address the impacts of climate change beyond adaptation, which results into looking into loss and damage. So you've heard and you've seen the pictures in the song that we put together as a nation at COP27, relying on the International Court of Justice declaration and the project that we currently being implemented with the support from the national government. So as we know, Vanuatu is very vulnerable and one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of experiencing natural disasters. And we also always refer to Vanuatu as experiencing multi-hazards and not just a single hazard. So in previous years, we have a lot of tropical cyclones. And just last year, at the beginning of last year, we had a twin cyclone that just came through the island where the capital is, Port Vila, within an span of 2 days, which both category 4 tropical cyclones. So this is a new experience for all of for a lot of people, but we always experience tropical cyclones, and we also share the same sentiment shared by Bangladesh in terms of impacts. Due to a lot of tropical cyclones, we are faced with difficulties, and we are faced with a lot of challenges in addressing these impacts. And as I mentioned in my introduction, we are now looking beyond adaptation to climate change and looking into loss and damage as an option for us. So in 2002, the government by the Prime Minister back then has declared a national emergency, a climate emergency in Parliament, and this leads to the wide implementation of the International Court of Justice climate diplomacy project that Vanuatu is working in leading other countries around, as we all know, to get opinion from the International Court of Justice on issues related to human rights from the impacts of climate change. So just briefly, we have experiences of a lot of non-economic loss and damages that's more related to human rights based impacts. So we have, I just want to share a few as an examples. In our small islands, we experience a lot of coral beach bleaching, coral reef bleaching, and this resulting in a lot of traditional ways of fishing have been lost over the years. A lot of our young youths today really cannot continue to practice those practices, traditional ways of fishing, because a lot of those traditional fishing methods were done with on our coral reefs, but with the coral bleaching as an impact of climate change, more and more we don't see our corals there. So we are losing out on that as well, and that is a tradition that we also lost after the impacts, and it's slowly bleaching everywhere. We also have the coral coastal erosion. As we all know, it's also happening in our small islands. We've resulted in people losing a lot of their homes, and also other traditional sites and memorial sites that were lost, washed away by sea. So we also have traditional ways and memorial sites lost as a result of disaster, frequent disaster events that we faced. And lastly, I also want to share in terms of food scarcity and food security in terms of agriculture. After its cyclones, tropical cyclones we experienced, we have a lot of loss in ways that we work in terms of agriculture systems in our small islands, and it also affects a lot of people, and which resulted also in various diseases that we also experience. So just to end, we want to say thank you to ICAT in terms of supporting the Ministry of Climate Change with the STRENGTH project that is looking into developing case studies around our different sites in Vanuatu to really identify and document the different impacts that we faced that related to loss and damage. And also I want to also highlight to us tonight that we have our enhanced NDC, and we have included loss and damage in the NDC as well, and it's costed. And this is how the government is looking into addressing loss and damage at this time. So I think I will end here. And for us seeds, we will always live with the impact of climate change, and loss and damage is another option that we are looking towards now beyond adaptation. Thank you, Nusrat and everyone.
Thank you so much, Florence, for giving those remarks. It's very important, and it's important work that Vanuatu has led, and it went beautifully because we got a positive decision there, and also with in the UNFCCC process, we now have some means of addressing through the loss and damage fund. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, we'll move. We're moving slowly, but we'll get there soon. So with that, I would like to call upon our next speaker, who's also from a small islands. His name is Jevanik Henry. He's a climate change and development professional with experience leading and supporting the development of environmental projects at multiple levels, particularly around access to climate finance. He is the currently Caribbean's first representative to the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, tasked with providing concrete recommendations for accelerating implementation of the SG's climate action agenda. So he was also one of our VFL case story author, and he has given a beautiful story, and we would like to hear firsthand from him on his experience sharing. Thank you. Hevanik, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Nusrat. And first of all, let me, of course, thank ICAD for the invitation. And it's always a pleasure to join the GGC. Hope I got that right. As was mentioned, so my name is Giovanni Henry, also from a small island developing state in the Caribbean, and a member of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. I always, when I describe our small island, it's also good to follow up from the colleague from Vanuatu. I always, when I describe St. Lucia, I always say, if you don't know where it is and you follow cricket, you will know you're part of the West Indies. So that's just a background there. But of course, within our region, there is, whilst, we're seen as the sort of a paradise and a very sort of a touristic region, there are various challenges, of course, given our high vulnerability to climate change, whether it's in terms of our location, our size, and how it has that sort of multi-sectoral impact. So just to share a bit on a sort of story from a local village, where it's actually where I grew up in. And it's interesting when we did that Voices from the Frontline story in 2023, I believe, last year, and how what has transpired in the time till now. In fact, now what we're seeing is that there's a lot more interest. In fact, others are now featuring that village. And in fact, now what is happening at the policy level is that it's our sort of policymakers looking at to decide what response mechanisms can be done to help deal with that issue. But I've said enough, so I'm just gonna share a quick video of just a situation which I'm describing, and then to go in a bit of context. I think you should be able to see a screen. Can you see a screen by chance? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, perfect. So this is just a simple snapshot of the village where I grew up. And like I said, it's a very fishing village. So of course, fishing and agricultural village. So of course, the ocean is almost like it's our bread and butter, it's a key form of our livelihood. And also now that we're sort of developing a blue economy sector, or widening our tourism product, it forms a key part of that. But we have serious erosion issues going on right now. And this was pictured, like I said, 2023. And going on to this year, let me just play this quick clip. I can't speak over it, actually. I've just in the sound. But if you can realize that what has happened in just a short space of time, it's been developing, that's for sure, as a slow onset event. But what has happened is that now there is literally, the beach is almost gone. Yeah. You can see where this coconut tree is there. It's and it's getting to a very drastic situation. This is how it's a supposedly, a slow onset event, but it's happening quite rapidly. And that is of great concern, not only to residents, but it's concern to sort of just almost everybody, visitors and so on who come to it. Because it's no longer, it used to be sort of a family oriented thing. And that is the dilemma which we face right now. How do we then deal with that situation given our limited capacity and so on? But like I said, what is happening now through the art of storytelling, you have a lot of different agencies now getting involved, just like we did at the Voice from the Frontline, and now getting involved in sort of telling that story of that beach and what it used to be like before and how important it is to our livelihoods. And that is why now we're seeing a bit of movement in terms of people wanting to, those who can really make the impact and sort of see what solutions we can help develop towards that situation. I think this sort of wraps up, which is something, and I think this sort of sums it up quite nicely when we always say that where we would walk on the beach, when we would walk on the beach, we can no longer, as essentially the sea has taken over. And it is from one village, but we've seen that happening across our small 258 square mile island. In fact, just I often share that beach was known for on a weekend to be very sort of a family oriented gathering. Lovely cricket there as well. I mean, we love our cricket. I'm sure it's similar in Bangladesh and others in the region. Now we can barely do it unless we're playing in the ocean, but that's just a bit on the lighter side. But indeed, from a serious standpoint, it is of great concern. And that is why now we're looking at what solutions can we have developed to help address that loss and damage. Because that is it is key to our livelihoods. It is key to our economics and economic sustainability, and that is why a lot of effort is being placed in that stage. But of course, even as young people, we are also trying to continue to advocate that the efforts are being made at a rapid rate, that trying to match the rate at which we were losing our coastal areas. But it's key, and that is where one of the key elements now is that the solution efforts are being guided by proper research. So this is not just an ad hoc approach, but we're looking at to see how can we do get sufficient research to see what would be the best method that would fit the context. And that goes beyond just this village. It goes, and that's what we're trying to push to ensure that whatever items of, not beyond adaptation, but from the loss and damage standpoint as well, that whatever methods are done, that it is done guided by the best available research. Also, traditional knowledge is key. So in fact, in developing solutions, we actually continue to engage with the senior folks within the community who perhaps have that sort of traditional knowledge on how, we can maybe be a more effective approach to protecting our coastline. And that is key as well, traditional knowledge. I think I just wanted to highlight that as well. Traditional knowledge is key, proper research is key. And I think it's important that we looks at what is best meets the needs of the community to help them address the loss and damage. Because like I said, it may seem quite simple in our case, but definitely the impact on the livelihoods, starting from the fisherman to the agriculture sector, is quite significant. And that is why we need to, yes, slow onset event, but slow onset events calls for rapid efforts to address the loss and damage. So we have the loss and damage fund now. So hopefully it can be a springboard that we in the Caribbean can also benefit, and also others there, whether it's from Southeast Asia, in the Pacific region, and others can really and truly be able to capitalize on the loss and damage fund as it is quote unquote operationalized at this point in time. Thanks again for the opportunity, and yeah, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Evan. It was very refreshing to hear, the things that people in the small islands are doing. It's actually, I think the small island states are the most active because, these, as you mentioned, very rightly mentioned, that these slow onset events are not really slow. Maybe it doesn't happen overnight, but it is happening quite rapidly. So it's very, very important to not just talk about the extreme ones, but also the slow onset events one. So thank you for your insights. So we're almost towards the end. So we have two more speakers. So now I would like to call upon Mr. Pareed Ridwanuddin. He's the campaigner for Coastal, Marine and Small Island at Friend of the Earth, Indonesia, Walhi. So over to you, Pareed, to lead us through some of the work that you're doing.
Hello, good afternoon for everyone. I couldn't open my camera.
No worries, problem.
Okay, but okay, let me share my presentation because I made short presentation. Okay, this is the my presentation, so hopefully it's not too long. So let me introduce my name. I am Pareed Ridwanuddin. I am campaign manager of Friend of the Earth Indonesia, or WALHI. So I would like to share my findings from the field about the impact of climate crisis, especially in the coastal and the marine and small island. Yeah, as you know, Indonesia is the largest or the biggest archipelagic state in the world. So my country consists of more than 17,000 island. Yeah. So this is the map of Indonesia. So my position, or our position, between Asia and Australia, and also between Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. So this is the location. And we in Indonesia, as the largest archipelagic state, also the most vulnerable state in the world, because in our findings, many smaller island already gone, disappear because the acceleration of sea level rise. And also this is the data in Indonesia, yeah, by 2050 there are almost 200 coastal district will lost, yeah, I mean will be affected by tidal flood, yeah. And this is the huge area, yeah, will be submerged by seawater, and minimum or at least 23 million people were affected. So this is very vulnerable. And also in our findings, there is many coastal villages, yeah, already drowned or has been drowning until now, and mostly happen in Java Island, yeah. So this is the short history in northern Java Island. So since 30 years ago, yeah, almost 30 years ago, many coastal villages gone, and many peoples also became climate refugee in Indonesia. They already moved to another area because the villages submerged by seawater. And this is the like local poster made by local people. They conduct like campaign to wider community in Indonesia to ask support and solidarity. Yeah, they make a poster to show to the people that their villages drowning. So do you see if you see the bamboo bridge, this is made by themselves, yeah, by local people who are facing the sea level rise, and they make their house higher and higher because sea level rising every year. And this is the total of coastal village in Indonesia, almost 13,000 coastal village, yeah, facing the climate crisis impact in Indonesia. So this is the big number, and also this is the spread of the impact of tidal flood in Indonesia, at least since 2017, yeah, until 2020. So the total villages which was affected by tidal flood more than 5,000. This is big number. And also in our data, every year our colleague, it means fisher folk, they died in the sea, in the middle of the sea, because the climate crisis. And in 1 year they only can go for fishing only for 6 months, yeah. And the rest 6 months they have to looking for another job, yeah. And the other problem of climate crisis is also the decline of fishermen number in Indonesia. So if we see, for example, since 2010 until 2019, yeah, there is the big number, yeah, decline of our fisher folk. So this is also became a big threat for our food sovereignty, especially food from the sea, yeah. And the other problem is also because the seawater warming, yeah, and many fishes they move to another area, especially to more comfortable or to more cooler to cooler area, yeah. So now for fishermen, they strongly difficult to catch fish, yeah, in the sea, and this is make their economic expenses, yeah, bigger and bigger every day, yeah. They go to the sea, but they didn't get anything, yeah, because the situation has changed, and also the destruction of coral also happened. And also in Indonesia, small island in the border between ocean, Indian and Pacific Ocean, also under big threat, yeah. And in the future, at least 83 small island in the border between ocean, Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean will disappear. So this is also became big threat for Indonesia, and climate issue in Indonesia became geopolitical issue, because if our small island, for example, gone or disappear, our sovereignty also will decrease in Indonesia, because our sovereignty measured from the most outer small island. So based on that situation, we in WALHI, in Friend of the Earth Indonesia, we are ready, or we have been conducting big campaign about the climate justice. And also this is the like brief concept, but we in Indonesia, we are conducting we demanding a climate justice bill, yeah, in Indonesia, to our government, to our parliament, yeah. We strongly demand, we strongly pushing the bill to our government since 3 years ago, yeah, at least. And also we are conducting many efforts to uh, to realize, to implement the climate justice principle. And also one thing we are conducting now, we in WALHI, in Friend of the Earth Indonesia, together with my colleague from HEX from Switzerland, and also together with our colleague from Berlin, with European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights, we are suing, we are campaigning for climate litigation from Pari Island people, from small island, against Holcim, the biggest cement company in the world. But maybe Pak Ivan will explain more detail. So this is our effort to implement climate justice principle, and also to campaign to a wider public, both in national and international. And this is our campaign in COP 27 in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. And also I met with Pak Saul from Peruvian, who against RWA, energy company from Germany. And also this is our campaign in Sharm el Sheikh, and this is the campaign of Pari Island against Holcim. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Farid. It's very interesting. This initiative is something very, very new, and it's very much required to have that climate justice principle embedded into all of our efforts. So with that, I'd like to call upon our last speaker for today, Ivan Maillard Ardenti. He is a climate justice policy advisor at the HEX EPR, a Swiss NGO, and responsible for climate justice, climate mitigation campaigning. So over to you, Ivan, for this interesting initiative that that HEX is conducting. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nusrat, for the invitation and the opportunity. I am audible. Is it okay?
Yes.
With
yes,
the sound. Okay. Thank you. And yes, I just want to I also want to thank all the speakers before me, because they give very concrete and strong examples of loss and damage stories. And I want to compliment Mr. Parid's presentations on what is happening in Indonesia. And I just wanted here to share my screen. And yes, this is a project that is conducted by Friend of the Earth Indonesia and by HEX EPR. HEX EPR is a Swiss NGO working in about 30 countries in the world. And for instance, in Bangladesh, we are working with ICAD and CPRD, and in Indonesia with Friend of the Earth Indonesia. And here just to yes, so in Hex Eper, together with Walhi, supported climate litigation, a climate lawsuit from 4 Indonesian fishermen and fisherwomen against the biggest cement company in the world. It's a Swiss company based in here in Switzerland. This is a Pari Island. This small island is one of the 17,000 islands in Indonesia, and on this island, we also already can observe the effects of climate change. And yeah, here they live from fishing and from tourism. So it looks like a small paradise with very nice beaches. And of course, they catch fish for their livelihood. And what are the impacts of climate change on this island? They are more and more frequent and severe floods, leading to damages to houses, but also leading to cancellations of tourist bookings, because if the island is flooded, nobody wants to spend the weekend on the island. There are also changes in weather and current patterns that lead to lower fish catch. The problem is also with the water wells, that they got saline and they are not proper for drinking water. And of course, there is anxiety on the island about the future, what will happen in a few decades, and also for the children's future. If you look here, a few pictures, this was during a flood with the seawater entering the houses, and you have to evacuate everything in order to protect your items, your electronic items, for instance. And of course, the house gets damages. The walls will rotten because of the seawater. Here is a picture on only a small part of the island will remain by 2050 if we don't act against climate change. So meaning that it will almost disappear in the ocean. And 4 inhabitants of this island decided to file a lawsuit against Holcim, the biggest cement company in the world, and they are asking different. They have different demands. The first demand is that their damages on the island are paid, is compensated by Holcim. They also ask Holcim, the company, to reduce its CO2 emissions by 43% until 2030, based on 2019 levels. These reduction pathways are based on the IPCC. And then third, they ask the company to contribute to climate change adaptation measures on their island to protect their island from future damages, like a stone wall and a mangrove forest, in order to break the strength of the waves. This lawsuit is supported by my organization, Hexapera, by Walhi, Friend of the Earth Indonesia, and we launched a website in order to communicate on this campaign. So it's quite. We have the website is called callforclimatejustice.org, and you can find all the news on them. Yes, a third organization is also active. It's a German organization, the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights. They are also supporting the campaign. As a conclusion, I would like to say that we see this lawsuit as a historic lawsuit because it's the second one after the one against RWE in Germany. The second lawsuit asking for loss and damage compensation from a company in the global north. And for us, it's also we support this lawsuit because this lawsuit has the power to make polluters pay, because Holcim is one of the biggest contributors to the climate crisis. Then this polluter should pay for the loss and damages that this island has. And also what we see is that the company, the climate strategy of the company is way too late and insufficient. And this means that the company is not reducing its CO2 emission in an appropriate manner to reduce the risks of loss and damage in the future on the island. And the last point is that we think that this lawsuit is a mean or a tool to get access to justice for people affected by loss and damage issues in the global south. And we had the first good news from the court 2 months ago, that the legal aid has been granted to the 4 plaintiffs. And legal aid means that the court costs and lawyers' costs are paid by the Swiss state. And this is a first big step for the plaintiffs, that they get financial support from the state, the Swiss state, for in order to have access to justice and to make their claims before a Swiss court. Yes, so maybe in conclusion, this is quite a good north-south partnership, I would say, a good collaboration between WALHI, Friend of the Earth Indonesia. Mr. Parry just talked about his work in Indonesia, and a Swiss-based or North-based organization like Hex Eper, so that we can get access to justice and for the 4 islanders. And maybe just about the context about climate litigation globally. In total, there are 2,000 climate-related lawsuits in the world. Mainly, they are mainly against states or provinces, or and some of them are also against corporations, but only a minority. And we see litigation or lawsuits as a kind of one of the tools in the toolbox. Of course, we need to be active at the International Court of Justice, like Vanuatu very well described before. We need to make pressure on our governments and so on, but we also need to make pressure on governments and corporations through lawsuits. And of course, victories is an objective. Victories in court are an objective, but not only. It's also these lawsuits allows us to conduct a campaign, a communication campaign, and to make the voices of people from the global south heard on loss and damage. And of course, this allows us to advance a public discussion on loss and damage, so that it is widely recognized that many people in the south are suffering from loss and damage, and that climate adaptation is not working in many places, because we have to go beyond climate adaptation and discuss about compensation of loss and damage. And maybe here just this small picture showing that we are here in the situation of David against Goliath. David, a small David, like a few islanders in Indonesia fighting against the biggest cement producer in the world. And of course, it's an unequal fight. But of course, we need to support David in his fight against this giant. And with this last picture, let me just try to, and these are 2 of the plaintiffs when they visited Switzerland last year before a cement manufacturing plant of Holcim, asking for climate justice for the island. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for the invitation. Nusrat, and over to you, Nusrat.
Thank you so much, Ivan. This is a very, very important and interesting initiative that I think, as you mentioned, that this is probably the second lawsuit that exists. So it's very important for us to go in multiple directions. Of course, we have the fund now, but at the same time, we should also not forego the principle of polluter pay. So it's important to gather that kind of evidence and we're a wonderful set of panelists today. The speakers, they all talked about the different experiences and the different stories that they have had from different regions all around the world. We have also showcased some of these video documentaries, which clearly states on the actual realities of the frontline communities. And it's important to have those and use that to liaise and gather that kind of evidence to go forward with your this kind of effort and initiative. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I'm really sorry that we couldn't keep our time as expected. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask now. Otherwise, you can reach out to us directly via email, or you could type it in the chat box for the rest of the attendees that are here today. If you have any questions for any of the speakers, we can spare 5 minutes, I think. Okay, if not, then we can move on towards closing the session. So for that, I would like to request our Managing Director of the International Center for Climate Change and Development, Saqib Haq, to share a few closing remarks. Over to you, Saqib.
Thank you, Nusrat. I hope I'm audible. So thank you to all our panelists, not only for engaging through us throughout the entire project for Voices for the Frontline, giving us your stories, sharing us with your innovative experiences that you've had in the impacts that you're facing, the vulnerabilities that you are tackling, but also in joining today, because we feel that this is very, very vital for your voices to be at platforms such as this, where it's not only speaking to the research community, to the practitioner community, but to a wider audience. And we hope that the recordings from these sessions, that they live on in being able to share your experiences, give your voices to a broader platform, take them into other spheres where people are looking for ways to support. What are the ways that they're able to collaborate with you, be able to support the initiatives that you're doing on the front lines? And particularly for research and practitioners, oftentimes these stories and these case studies, as we say, they're voices from the front line, they're vital pieces of information for us to design our research, for us to design our interventions. When we're looking at concepts, when we're looking at proposals, when we're talking to our donors and our funders, oftentimes these are the types of evidences that we need. So the innovations that we've been having in collecting these voices, whether they be through videos or written articles or podcasts, as we've been trying to explore various different mediums on how we can be a bit more innovative in engaging with local communities that don't necessarily need to be sitting and writing, as researchers do, pages and pages of stories and evidences, which take a long time to do, and oftentimes are just a publication that sits on a desk. If I'm very, very frank, being from the research community, we have multiple publications that only exist for the duration of a project. And that's really, really unhelpful for communities that are tackling these impacts day in, day out, looking for some sort of support. And we hope that these sorts of platforms, such as the Gobeshona platform here, the CBA conference to happen later on this year, the Resilience Hub that happens in the COPs physically, those sorts of platforms are where we're able to bring your voices and your stories to negotiators that are making the policies that really impact the type of funding, the type of initiatives that we're actually able to get off the ground, the type of legal cases that we've seen. Now seeing the effects of loss and damage being taken on to the legal stage, at the global stage, looking at cross-regional stories of how people can support these types of legal actions to come. So please do look out for the initiatives that we've posted here today. The speakers are on the panel here today. Please do reach out to them. If you're able to use the conference platform, the HOBA platform, to get in touch with the panelists, the speakers, the people that have shared some of their articles and their videos, please do feel free to reach out to them while the conference is live. If you're unable to do so while the conference is still active, please do feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be able to make connections where we can go. And really, if you're in those regions where we've collected these stories from those countries, from those districts, please reach out to the people and go and see their initiatives. Look at the projects firsthand, be there with them on the front line to understand their vulnerabilities, but also their successes. How are they being resilient? How are they actually addressing the loss and damage issues that they're having to face? And one of the core elements of we see for addressing loss and damage through locally led adaptation is to be collecting these individual stories, these collective community stories from the front lines, and be able to put them at the center stage. So eventually, hopefully, what we would like to see in many years to come, or as soon as possible, is really these communities being the leaders, us as funders, us as researchers and practitioners, really being there to facilitate their work, facilitate their adaptation initiatives, their addressing loss and damage implications that they're working on, for us to be able to take a step back and let those communities take that leadership. And with that, if you're able to reach out, I know many of the presentations had a lot of their hashtags and their social media platforms listed on their slides. When you're looking at the recordings later on, if you're able to get in touch with the speakers and to go into their websites, as Yvonne mentioned as well, for the legal cases that they're doing, if you're able to go into those websites and reach out to them and contact them, please feel free to do so. And hopefully that fosters more networking and more collaborations where we're able to be really supportive for the people that are actually on the front lines. So I'm very, very delighted that we're able to have this session at Gobeshona this year. And we hope that we'll be able to have further collaborations going forward. With that, I'll end over there. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you so much. So before we end the session, can all the speakers kindly turn on their cameras so that we can take a very quick group photo with all the panelists, if it's possible?
So Nusrat, please tell the host to open the camera. Thank you.
Great. Is there anyone else? Florence, could you, and Shumais, if you could also. And if you're not comfortable, then it's okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. All right, so we can now probably take the screenshot. So on 3, 2, 1. Done?
Yes, we're done.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here today, for joining us this panel. And hopefully everyone will be here with us today's the last day of our Gobeshona conference. So hopefully everyone will be joining us for the closing session as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Nusrat and the ICAD.